derived protein, and I said derived protein is what is divided into two based on the mechanism of hydrolysis of protein, right? Because derived protein are protein that are actually let me say they are derived from simple and conjugated protein. You understand? But whenever simple and conjugated protein is treated with what with heat, acid or what or enzyme, that's actually when we are going to get what derived protein. And it is divided into two. We have the first one, which is the primary protein, which is primary derived protein, and second one, which is the secondary derived protein. Now, what really happens here is that in the case of the primary derived protein and the secondary derived protein, which is PDP, right, and also SDP, that's what we have. In this case, once again, we are going to have primary derived protein PDP and secondary derived protein, that is SDP. So what actually happened here is that I'm going to give you an example of primary derived protein and also that of secondary derived protein. And what I just want you guys to understand is that in the case of primary, it is actually treated with it is actually obtained whenever protein is treated with heat and let me say acid or base, right? Acid or base solution. That is actually when we are going to obtain the derived protein. You understand? That is protein in presence of acid or base will give us primary derived protein, which is PDP. Then protein in presence of heat will give us PDP. Now in the case of secondary, we basically have enzyme. We are obtained whenever protein is treated with enzymes, right? And in that case, example, we have let me just give you guys the mnemonics. We have the Peter, right, meets cool people, right? Peter meets cool people playing piano. That's basically what we have. Peter meets cool people playing piano, right? And in that case, PMC, which is the first letter, it represents the primary protein. Then PPP, which is the last few letters, actually represents the second protein. So in that case, this first P basically denotes a special type of protein, and that protein is actually referred to as let me say we have it to be proteins, right? So proteins are special type of protein or primarily derived protein that are obtained when the protein is treated with either heat or acid or base, right? So and we have, for example, we have case of paracasein and also acid casein. Do you understand? So the next one that we have the M, which actually denotes the meta protein, right? So meta protein they are obtained whenever protein is treated with acid or base. That's meta protein. Then the next one we have cool. This represents coagulated, right? Coagulated protein. That is, they are obtained whenever the protein is treated with heat. Just think of it. You have your normal egg, right? Your normal egg, when you boil it, you've already treated that egg with heat, right? In that case, it is going to coagulate. That's basically what it means. So that's coagulated protein. That is, they are obtained whenever protein is treated with heat. That's coagulated protein. Then the last few letters that we have the people playing piano. Whenever protein is treated with enzyme, that's what we are going to have it. Then in that case, we're going to have people. These people basically represent the protein that we call it proteases, right? Proteases. You understand? They are basically obtained whenever there is degradation, enzymatic degradation of protein. Enzymatic degradation, that is when you degrade protein with enzyme. You treatment of protein through enzymatic action. That's actually going to yield proteases. It's going to yield peptones, right? Then it's going to yield something that we call the peptides, right? So proteases, peptones, and peptides, they are basically example of secondary protein that we have. Then white proteins, meta protein, and coagulated protein, they are basically example of primary proteins that we have. You get it? So that's basically everything under classification of protein. Generally, protein is divided it's classified into three major classes. We have the simple, derived, and also conjugated. Or you say simple, conjugated, and also derived, right? Simple is basically let's say it's contain basically protein. You understand? Whenever protein is subjected to hydrolysis, what we are going to get is actually amino acids. So whenever we get amino acids, such protein is simple protein. The next one that we have is conjugated protein. It is actually a protein that contains a non-protein part. You understand? It's classified under protein, right? Because the content, the protein content is very, very high there. So conjugated protein, they are protein that contain, and apart from protein, they contain another what special type of molecule, which is actually called what the prosthetic group. You understand? Whenever it is what, it is attached what, to the protein structure. Do you get? And that's conjugated protein. The next one that we have is actually what derived. The one that is obtained whenever what the simple or conjugated undergo what hydrolysis. That is derived protein. So that is that under what the classification of protein that we have. Now let's move to the function of protein. Now look at this. Let's come back here to what to come and talk about what the structure, right? So in this case, I'm having a diagram here, right? A diagram here and a diagram here. These diagrams, I'm going to actually make use of them to explain the functions of what protein that we have. Now look at this. This is the first one, right? And then here I'm going to call this particular part here. I'm going to call it what the epidermis, right? This is going to be the epidermis, and then here I'm going to basically represent from this point to this point. And look at this. I'm going to call this bad guy here. I'm going to call it what? Let me say elastin, right? And I'm going to call this red part, I'm going to call this what? Collagen, right? Then from there, I'm going to represent everything here as well. Let me say fat cells. They are the cells of the fat, right? Then at the same time, this is going to be our muscle, rather. Do you get sound? So that's basically what happened. So what really happened here is that if you guys notice something here, look at this. Everything here is what is actually smooth, right? We are having a smooth skin. Epidermis is actually what a let's say the cells of the skin, right? The layer of the skin, right? So now look at this. This is actually what a smooth surface, right? And this surface what is smooth due to the fact that we have some protein here that actually plays a role of structural support. They give shape, right? That's because they are there. An example, we have elastin and also what collagen. They are special type of protein that perform what structural role in the body. You understand? They perform what let me call them what supportive protein. Do you get some? Because without this elastin and also what collagen, this skin that you are seeing here that is very, very smooth here is going to become what wrinkle, right? Something like this. You're going to have this like something like this. It's going to become what wrinkle, right? And in that case, this kind of skin can only be seen in what in the young children, and this can be only be seen in what in the old children, right? And I'm going to explain the reason why. In the young children, we are going to have a very, very standby, like let me say a very, very straight elastin and also what collagen, because at that point the rate at which what collagen is being produced what in the body is very, very high compared to what the rate at what collagen what is being degraded, right, in the young age. And in that case, that's actually when you are going to see some kind of face of young children is going to be very, very smooth. There is not going to be a rough part there, right? That's because the structural protein there is still intact. Then in the old age, what is going to happen is that the elastin and the collagen is going to be degraded faster. And that simply means in the old age, we are going to have basically the number of collagen and elastin that is what being degraded at the old age is very, very high compared to the rate at which the fibroblast, which is the cell that synthesizes collagen and so what that synthesizes collagen, due to the let's say the rate at which that cell like synthesizes collagen, right? What I'm basically saying is that in the young age, the rate at which collagen and elastin is being produced is higher than the rate at which they are being degraded, and that's not that the surface of the cells is very, very smooth, right? So in that case, protein can function. They can function as structural structural support. They give supportive support. They function as let me say they have supportive role in the body. They basically give shapes. You understand to the body. Do you get it, sound? Now let's go ahead and move to the next one. The next one I'm going to talk about here is actually this guy here, which is the B cells. So one thing that happened to the B cell is that these B cells, they are basically a special type of immune cells, right? Immune cells. And why are they called immune cells? That's because our body actually have a kind of mechanisms that is actually used to eliminate foreign substances in the body. And in that case, immune cells are responsible for fighting against, for eliminating the foreign substances, or let me simply say foreign invaders that enter the body. In that case, immune cells like B cells, they are responsible for producing a special type of molecule called antibodies. What we are saying here, or let me say what we are saying here, is actually called the antibodies, right? So these antibodies, they help to eliminate foreign molecule, and that foreign molecule is going to be this particular red thing that you're seeing here. In that case, I'm going to call this guy antigen. You understand? This is the antigen, right? And what are antigen? Antigen are what are foreign molecule. You understand? That have the ability to generate immune response. What I'm saying is that they have the ability to let me say triggers an immune response. Do you get it? So in that case, they need to be eliminated because they are foreign substances, right? So what happens is that there is a special type of protein which are called what the antibodies or immunoglobulins that are produced by the B cells. You understand? Which are the what immune cells. B cells are special types of immune cells. To be specific, we say adaptive immune system. If you want to be more specific, we are going to say they are B cell mediated immune system, and that is basically humoral immune system. Do you get some? So in that case, B cells they are responsible. They are type of immune cells that produce what antibodies, and antibodies are what are special type of proteins, right? They are special type of protein that helps what to fight against what antigen. And how do they fight against antigen? They bind to the antigen, and that's exactly what you are saying here. Once they bind to the antigen, they will mark it for elimination. They will neutralize what the effect, the kind of effect of this antigen. They neutralize it by binding to it. Do you get that? So that's how the basic what eliminate what antigen. So in the body, protein actually helps what to let me say perform a function of defensive. Like they help to defend the body from foreign invader. You understand? By producing what a special type, sorry, B cell rather, they produce what a special type of protein, which is called what the antibodies. And what antibodies does is that they play the major role of defense in the body. They help to fight against what foreign what invaders. Then that's basically what it means. Now let's move to another structure that we have here. Now this structure is basically called. Let me say this is what the blood value, right? This is the blood value, right? And then that's very very important for you to understand. Then what we are seeing here, we have what we have the everything that we are seeing here is actually what the blood field, right? And then in this case, this is blood field. Now what you are seeing here, this is special type of transporters, or let me call it carrier protein instead of transporter, because if I want to use transporter is what is actually used for let me say membrane protein. But in this case, we are talking about blood. Since you are referring to blood, I'm going to make it of carrier. You understand? I'm going to use that as carrier protein. Carrier protein. Now, this is what it means. Now, there are some molecules in the body, you understand, that generally they cannot move freely inside the blood. And the reason is that maybe they are not hydrophobic. They are hydrophobic rather. And then whenever this kind of molecule, for example, lipid, like for example cholesterol, right? Cholesterol is what is a type of example of lipid. It cannot diffuse easily in the blood. It cannot move freely in the blood. Instead, it requires a transporter. And what are these transporters? These transporters are or let's say this carrier. They are special type of protein. Check it down. So they help to carry this cholesterol in the they help to carry it through the blood. This is the blood fluid, and in that case, I'm going to call this guy a carrier protein. And let me say to be specific, let me just call it LDL, low density lipoprotein, and let me call it high density lipoprotein. They are lipoprotein. They are special type of protein that function as as a carrier. And let's just call this bad guy here. Let's call it Let's call it cholesterol, right? Let's call it cholesterol. Cholesterol is a fat, and it is hydrophobic. It cannot move through the biological system, the biological fluid, which is the blood, right? Because the blood tends to exist in nature state, and that is the cholesterol cannot move. It's an example of lipid in this case. It cannot move freely in the blood. So instead, it requires a carrier protein. This carrier protein is an example of protein. In that case, it basically means protein can help to function as a transport protein, as a transport molecule. They help to transport to allow the movement of some molecule freely in the blood. That's an example of another function of protein, right? And it's very very important because cholesterol, right, is actually useful for the formation of hormone. Some hormone actually requires for the formation of hormone, like hormones we have androgens, right? We have cortisol. These are steroid hormones. So this hormone, they are actually derived from they are synthesized from cholesterol. So some cells actually need cholesterol for the synthesis of this hormone that I'm talking about, right? So in that case, look at this. This is a carrier protein. It helps to transport cholesterol, and look at what's going to happen. Then let's just imagine that we have what? We have the cholesterol outside here, right? We have cholesterol here, right? This is the cholesterol, right? This is the cholesterol that we are seeing here, right? Basically, this is cholesterol. So what really happened is that after the cholesterol has bound to this kind of what, or special transporter, which is called what, or special carrier, which is called what, the low density lipoprotein or what, high density lipoprotein. Example of carrier protein that we can also have in what, the body. We have the case of what, of albumin, which is which is actually the most common one, and it's very important, right? We have albumin. So it's an example of what, of protein, of carrier protein. Then another example is low density lipoprotein and so high density protein, which can actually help us to transport what, cholesterol, right? Now let's continue. Let's see what's going to happen here. So imagine this is my what, this is my cholesterol, and what really happen here is that everything that you are seeing here is what, is the membrane, is the what, is the biological membrane, right? Biological membrane, and then in that case, it's actually made up of phospholipid bilayer. I'm going to make a separate video on this, on the biological system, the biological membrane system, right? So from there, we have everything that you're seeing here as the cholesterol, right? This is cholesterol, right? So one thing that happens is that since cholesterol is a lipid, it can easily diffuse, it can easily pass through this membrane, right? So it can easily pass through this membrane easily. So in that case, it can move into what, into the cell, and to be used what, to synthesize what, hormone. It can be used what, to synthesize what, hormones, right? So this cholesterol is diffused, it's passed through what, it passed through the phospholipid bilayer easily, and used to what, synthesize what, hormone. Now look at what is happening here. This is what is happening here. Now, if you look at this molecule that I'm having here, right, it's an integral protein, right, and it is functioning as what? It's functioning as what? As a receptor. So once again, this is going to be what? This is going to be, listen, intracellular fluid, and outside there we are going to have what? Extracellular fluid, right? That's what we have. The inside of the cell is what? Is intracellular, and the outside is what? Is what? Extracellular, and everything that you are seeing here is what? Biological what? Membrane, right? So what really happens is that this particular transmembrane protein can function as what? As a receptor, right? Receptors. And do you know what this means? This guy here is a protein, and it is functioning as what? As a receptor. The receptor are what? A special type of what? Of protein molecule that are found on what? On the surface. You understand? They can be found what? They are found what? On the surface of what? Of the biological membrane, or they can be found what? In the inside. They can be found what? Inside what? The cell. They can be found outside of what? On the membrane of what? Of the cell, which is what? This one that you are seeing here. This one is a receptor, and they can be found what? Inside. Right? That's basically what receptor. But what I want to say is that receptor, what's their function? They actually help in what? In basically cell signaling. You know, cell to cell communication. Some cell can communicate with another cell through what? Through receptors. Right? And in that case, that receptor, the nature of that receptor is actually a protein. The receptor is a protein, and play a major role in what? In cell communication. Right? Cell to cell communication. For example, now, before this B cell, as like example now, before it can produce what? Produce antibodies, it must first bind, you understand, to some antigen on antigen presenting cell, right? It must first bind to what? To it. So in that case, this particular guy here is a receptor, and is a protein molecule. So protein also perform a function of what? Of receptor. They help in what? In cellular what? Communication. That's basically what is there. You understand what I'm saying? For example, now if a cell wants to receive information from the brain, do you get some? Then the brain has to release neurotransmitter. Then it's going to be transported to the targeted tissue. In that case, where the neurotransmitter is going to bind to is going to be the receptor. So the receptor actually facilitates cell to cell communication, and that receptor is a protein. So protein also helps to perform the main function of communication in the body. They help in cell signaling. You understand? They help in cell to cell communication. So this is the receptor. Then another special molecule that we are having here is going to be about our carrier protein. You understand? There's another carrier protein apart from this one that transports some molecule in the blood. We also have a special type which is also the carrier protein. And the function of carrier protein basically is that they help to transport some kind of molecule into the cell. That's the function of carrier protein. They basically transport molecule into the cell. That's their own function. You understand? And this carrier protein, they are protein, right? So it's an example of, let me say it's an example of protein because it helps to transport molecule into the cell, right? So and in that case, that's another function of protein. Protein helps in transport of molecule into the biology system. or into the what? Into the cell. You understand? The helps to transport molecule from the extracellular fluid into the what? The intracellular fluid. That's basically what? Transport protein. So this is carry an example of carrier protein. Then another one that we have in here, this is a special what? A special type of protein molecule, right? Protein molecule, which also helps what? In transporting let me say molecule from the extracellular fluid into the what? Intracellular fluid. It can be from the movement can be from extracellular fluid to intracellular, or intracellular to extracellular. That's basically what's happening, and it can only be through this. So this movement of this basically a carrier protein, it's helps to move molecule from the extracellular fluid to the intracellular fluid, and then this is going to be what? This is going to be a transport protein. Let me just call it a transporter. You understand? I'm going to call it a transporter. Let me just simply rub something here so that I can actually write the name, right? I don't need cholesterol again, right? So in that case, let's quickly move on. So this is going to be a transporter, right? So transporter basically the helps to transport molecule from the extracellular fluid into the intracellular fluid. That's basically their function. They are kind of different from some carrier protein. Carrier protein helps to carry molecule from the extracellular fluid into the intracellular fluid. Transporter, they transport their special pore or protein molecule where molecule can pass through. I get it, and that's what basically what transporter. Whether it is carrier protein or a transporter, they basically perform the function of transport in the living system. They help to transport molecule into the cell, into the in and out of the cell. That's basically what it means. That the molecule can leave the cell through the protein, or let's say through the carrier or transporter, the carrier protein or transporter protein. So they can leave or enter. Molecule can leave and enter the cell. That's basically the function of protein there. So protein helps to transport molecule from the extracellular fluid of the cell into the intracellular fluid. So that's basically what the function of protein. Let me just simply go ahead and talk about the function generally. Here we are talking about elastin and collagen, which actually they are protein that helps to give structural support to the body tissue rather. That's the first function. The next one is antibodies, which they are special type of protein that perform defensive role in the body. Then another one we have the role of carrier proteins in the blood, right? This is the blood pressure, and this guy is called what? This is the molecule that they are trapped. So this is called what? The cholesterol. So we have some special type of protein like low density lipoprotein or high density lipoprotein. They help to transport cholesterol in the blood. So they are special type of transporter, or let's say carrier protein. So example that we have is also albumin. It's also a carrier protein in the blood. They help to transport any molecule that cannot move freely in the blood. They will carry them freely. You understand? So now another one that we have is actually the receptor, right? So protein helps in cell-to-cell communication, which is the receptor. Protein helps to transport something like material in and out of the cell. Is another function. Then another function that we also have the function of storage. We have storage, right? So some protein as well, they help in the storage of amino acids, right? We have the gluten, we have the zinc, you understand? We have many of them. So the protein can also perform the function of storage. You understand what I'm saying? That's another function that we have. Then another one that we have that I would still like to talk about in the case of structural. You understand? Structural protein. So structural protein, let's just think of it like this in two ways. We have those ones that gives support, and those ones that helps in contraction. You understand what I'm saying? That's contraction. And in that case, when something is contracting, like you are contracting, that's muscle, right? You are able to contract something is contracting and relaxing. Some protein also perform a special role there. They help in the contraction and relaxation of the muscle cell. So example of protein here, we have the right. We have the myosin, right? Myosin, right? Then we have myosin, and also we have another one. We have the actin, right? So that's just what we have. There are special type of protein that helps in the contraction of the muscle, right? So another type of protein I would like to talk about, we have the elastin. I've mentioned it, and also we have the collagen, right? So this elastin is actually performing the function of let me say contractile. That is ability for you to strengthen your skin like this, and to still return back to its normal position. That is elasticity, right? Elasticity of the skin is performed by elastin, right? You strengthen your skin and it's going to return back to its original position. That's basically what it means. So that's just it all about the protein. So I believe we've actually successfully covered the definition, the classification, and also at the same time we've covered the function of what of protein. So it's very simple, and then that's just it about this video. So if you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. It's very important, right? So we are going to make a lot of videos on biochemistry and also chemistry, and at the same time I'm going to talk about some physiology aspects, right? So that's just about this video. So stay blessed. Thanks for watching.